Hey folks, welcome back to the Leeds Gamer. Just before I get into the video, if you could possibly subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, if you could like and like the video, and also hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future content. All of that would be massively appreciated. We're not too far off the end of the season, and so I just had a quick look to see who might leave Leeds this summer. I don't want to see a big squad overhaul, meaning that we need to then buy another 10 or 12 players. I don't think we want or need that. I think we've got the nucleus of a very decent squad. But with the potential £100 million that the club will get if they can stay in the Premier League this season, which it looks by and large as if they probably will, then we're going to need to spend that on probably, I would say, maybe 4 quality players. But 100 million won't get you 4 quality players. It might get you 4 players that are of a similar level to what Leeds currently have. But if we're going to improve and not be anywhere near the relegation zone next season, then we need to really add some proper additional quality to the squad. A little bit like when we signed Rafinha. You know, he just had that little bit of extra class over everybody else, certainly from an attacking point of view. And like from a championship point of view, when we got Pablo Hernandez, you know, again, he was just a cut above. Despite being about 30 at the time as well, we got Pablo quite late on in his career. But you could just see the skill and the technique. So obviously we get the 100 million at the end of the season for staying up. We will also get 3 million per position that we finish. So 20th gets 3 million, 19th gets 6, 18th gets 9, etc. So you've got that money coming in too. So it's imperative that Leeds finish as high as possible. And then you've got whatever money we can possibly get from player sales. Now, the 4 on the left we won't get any money for because they are all out of contract this season. Now, what do I think might happen with these 4 players? The video being who could leave Leeds United this summer and why could they leave? Well, it's pretty clear on screen, but I'll go through it anyway. So out of, we've got 4 players out of contract, which ironically is 3 of the 4 senior goalkeepers. But you've got Caldalo, Ilimillier, Alex Cairns and Sam Byram. Now, out of those 4, only one of them has played a good chunk of games this season, that's Caldalo. Ilimillier's already basically said he's going to leave. Regarding Alex Cairns and Sam Byram, it's unknown as to what's going to happen with them. Now, I actually went on the Leeds United official website earlier on today, and in their job vacancies, they've actually listed under 18's goalkeeper coach. Alex Cairns. Get him in there. Like, why Alex doesn't do that on like a player coach basis, I have no idea. You know, he's still only 33, so he could continue playing if he wants. But that position would be absolutely tailor-made for Alex. If he wants to get into coaching, that's his route. That's his route. And I'm certain the club would take him on in that capacity. You know, because he can work towards his coaching badges at that point. And you've got a player that came through the Leeds Youth Academy in the first place. Knows the place like the back of his hand. And I just think he'd be an excellent fit for that role. He's known to have a really good personality. And he loves the club. He's from Leeds. He's a Leeds lad. So, yeah. That, to me, would make sense. Sam Byram... Again, I don't know what's happening with Sam. He's out of contract. He's only played 7 minutes this season, which is abysmal. And he's been fit for the majority of the season, as far as I'm aware. He's just been at the extremely bottom of the pecking order. Sam's going to turn 33 this September, So he's not likely to get any game time with the first team. If Sam wants to continue playing, he's going to have to leave, there's no doubt about it. If he wants to stay at the club, I think he should try and become a Leeds youth coach. Or maybe assist Daniel Farker in the senior coaching team. You know, and again, work towards his coaching badges. It depends what he wants to do. If he wants to continue playing, he'll need to move away, and he'll need to get a move to a championship, League One or League Two team, depending on the level he feels he can still play at. I don't think he'd get a Premier League move. I think he'd be a very solid championship player. At this stage of his career, and let's not forget that when Sam was coming through the youth academy, he was a very highly rated right back, and you could see why. So I think he'd be a great pickup for anyone in the championship. But if he wants to get into coaching, I don't see why the club couldn't make a space for Sam. He's been a very reliable player when called upon. So yeah, that's what I'd like to see there. Illemelier, I mean, he hasn't got ties to the club like Guernsey and Sam. I think Illan will probably get a move back to the French league. He might even go back to Lorient, where we got him from in the first place. We paid £5 million for Illan, but we've gotten about 200 appearances out of him. So I think he's probably, we've probably got the money back based on his appearances, and let's be fair to Illan, and he knows himself he's got a bit of an error in him, but he's also in the past proven to be a very good goalkeeper, and he's still only 25. He's got the rest of his career ahead of him. He could play for another 10 years comfortably if he wanted to. So I think Illan would be a very good pickup for anyone, any of the mid-table teams in the French top division. Maybe even Celtic. Kasper Schmeichel's retiring or leaving in the summer. That leaves them with just Sinisalo and Doohan. I think Meslier could do a good job playing for Celtic. I mean, they don't even have a manager at the minute, not a permanent one. Martin O'Neill's... It's unknown as to what Martin O'Neill's going to do at the end of the season as far as Celtic are concerned. But I think Meslier would do a good job in the Scottish League. It's not as intense as the English Premier League, so why not? Give it a go. You get, if he joins Celtic, he gets to play in another big stadium, just like Ellen Road. Celtic Park's bloody massive. Good support. Well supported team. I think it'd be a good fit. Could battle it out with Sinisalo. They're a similar age. Sinisalo's about 24, and Meslier is currently 25. So I think that'll be a good battle between the two of them for the number one shirt at Celtic. Carl Darlow, I think he'll get a new contract. I think he'll get a new 1 year deal. I think Leeds will work on getting a new goalkeeper because it's unknown as to what's going to happen with Lucas Perry. But I think Carl's earned an extra year, whether that's his first choice or second choice goalkeeper. Yeah, simply put, I would try and offer another 1 year extension to Carl's deal. Moving on to the players that have been loaned out. Quite frankly, I don't see a future for any of them at the club. They've been loaned out for a reason. Isaac Schmidt was out of his depth in the friendlies that I saw him in. I went to Ellen Road when I think we were against Valencia, and he was out of his depth at fullback. I actually think that Isaac Schmidt's skill set would actually suit him as a number 8 or a number 10. I think as an attacking midfielder, he's quite useful on the ball. He's just not a fullback. It's weird. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I'd retrain Isaac Schmidt to play in a more advanced role. I don't think fullback's his position. I really don't. We bought Schmidt for about £3 million. I think the best we can do is probably just get that 3 million back. I don't think we'd get much more for him, to be honest. His loan spell's been a very mixed bag this season. Max Verber, we signed him for £11 million. He's had injury problems all season. I think it would be very difficult to recoup the 11 back. I think we'd possibly maybe get 5 or 6 from somebody if he can prove his fitness. Jack Harrison, after about 3 loan spells, we bought for about £11 million. And again, his loan spell at Fiorentina has been a bit hit and miss. There was a player in Jack Harrison a few years ago. He's just not the same player anymore, and he's 29 now. So, you know, these are his peak years. You know, he's got 1 or 2 years at his best left before his ability starts to wane a little bit, and I think it's already started to wane. I just don't think he's the same player. Shame. There was a good player in Harrison. In terms of the 11 million that we spent, again, we're probably only going to get about half back, maybe 5 mil, 5 or 6 maximum, I would think. I mean, I've probably been a bit generous in terms of what we'd get back for the likes of Verber and Harrison. Depends how long's left on their contracts as well. I haven't checked. But they are both still comfortably in contract. They've got at least 1 more year remaining on their contract. So if we're going to get any money at all, this summer's the time to, you know, potentially sell. Ladji Ramazani, it's just not worked out for him. You know, he had a very decent first season with Leeds in the Championship, but he was deemed surplus to requirement for the Premier League. His loan spell's been a bit hit and miss, but he's done. It's getting better from what I've heard. There's a good player in Ladji Ramazani, I think. Very, very tricky, skillful winger. We bought him for about £7 million. I'd like to think we could get most of that back. I think he's a decent player. I think we could get most of that back. Certainly 5 or 6. And there'll still be a fair chunk of time left on his contract, you know, because he was only bought, you know, in our Championship season, not, you know, the last season just gone, you know, where we got promoted. Joe Gallagher, we bought him for just £1 million, and the season he's had at Hull, he's done fantastic. He's been scoring goals, he's been assisting goals for Hull City, and he's helped them get into a playoff place. So I see no reason why we can't make some profit on Joe Gallagher. I think Hull would want to keep him, and, you know, signed for £1 million as a young player. I think, you know, I mean, he's about 23 now, so I reckon bought him for £1 million. I reckon we could get 4 or 5. I don't think that's unrealistic. I think his stock has risen, and he's proven that he can hack it in the Championship this season. So I don't think it'd be unrealistic to maybe try and get maybe, you know, 3 or 4 million profit on him. Matteo Joseph, another player that we signed for about £1 million. His loan spell's not gone all that great at Mallorca. He's still only 22, so he is still relatively young, especially you know, for a player that basically demands to play, you know, week in, week out. That was his gripe. That's why he ended up getting loaned out, because he had his chance. He was given his chance. Played about 15 games. He only got 3 goals. And then obviously Pirro was brought back in. This was in our Championship season. So yeah, I think maybe a similar price to what to what we could possibly sell Gallart for. I don't, for a player of his age, I don't think it'd be unrealistic to get 4 or 5 million for him. But I think that Joseph is a player that we would have maybe looked to try and get maybe 10 million for, had his loan spell gone better. Then again, if his loan spell had gone better, maybe he would have had a look in as being a possible striker for the first team next season. But I don't see it personally. And then moving on to the players that just simply haven't played very much this season. These 4 players have played under 1,000 minutes so far. We do also have 2 players in Lucas Metcher and Sean Longstaff who also haven't played 1,000 minutes yet, but by the end of the season they possibly will have done. Lucas Metcher is on 928 minutes with 9 starts and 19 sub-ups, and then Sean Longstaff has played 975 minutes with 10 starts and 11 sub-ups. So I think there's every possibility that Lucas and Sean, could get over the 1,000 minutes mark and, kind of cement the place in terms of, being a useful squad player. As far as Sebastian Bornau is concerned, I think he's been a bit unlucky because he's only played 4 starts and 5 sub-ups, totaling 308 minutes. But when Bornau's played, he's been all right. I can't think of a time where he's let us down. He's just been unlucky that the likes of Strout, Beal and Roden have just been really good. So, it's just been unfortunate. I do wonder about the fact that James Justin has covered at centre-back when Bornau could quite easily have covered. So that to me suggests that Daniel Farke doesn't 100% trust Bornau if he's playing a primary fullback at centre-back over Bornau, who is an actual centre-back. So, I don't know. I think there's something a bit off there. Bornau was only signed for £5 million. I think we could probably recoup that £5 million because he's a good age. He's only 27, so he's got minimum 3 years. He could sign a 3-year contract with somebody and do very well for them. I think he's a decent centre back, but is a 27-year-old really going to want to go through another season and not play? I would doubt it somehow, especially if he won't. I mean, I think he was hoping to get into the Belgium squad for the World Cup. That ain't going to happen. Not based on the lack of minutes there. I think if he'd have played this season, I think he'd have got in because he would have potentially had a very good season. So yeah, in terms of the £5 million that we spent on him, yeah, I think we can get the £5 million back. I don't think we make much profit on him. Might sell him for 6 if we're lucky. But as I say, if we were to sell Seb, I don't. It's not based on anything he's done wrong. He just hasn't played. This next one's difficult. Wilfred Nonto. He's still only 22. I can't believe he's still only 22 years old. Because it feels like he's been at Leeds ages. But he's only played 4 starts and 16 sub-ups, totaling 448 minutes. He's not going to get over 1,000 minutes by the end of the season. Not a chance. Even if he was to start all 3 games. So, with all of that, he's only clocked up 1 assist in that time. But, he's a fully fledged Italy international when he plays regular at least. But he just don't fit the system. He's a winger. But again, Leeds, if Leeds are going to want to play, there's in a different style next season, it could require wingers, and I have a feeling Daniel Farke don't want to stick to the 5-3-2, 5-4-1, type of formation. I think he wants to go back to a possession based. more attacking formation for next season. But again, it's whether he can get the players to do that, and if they'll be good enough. So with Wilfred Gnonto, we signed him for £5 million. What feels like an age ago. It must be 4 years ago now. And you know, you could argue that someone that's aged only 22 could probably just hang on a bit longer. So, you know, would the sensible idea be to give Wilfred Gnonto a loan spell somewhere so that he can get regular game time, and then come back if he has an amazing season? You know, gets plenty of goals and assists for whoever he goes to, and then bring him back for the following season and say, right, I want to try and cement a place in the starting 11 on a regular basis now. But that's the challenge for Willie. You know, whether he's able to do that or not is another matter entirely. Dan James, on the other hand, he's at the other end of the age spectrum. He's at the other end of the 20s. He's 28 now. Obviously a fully fledged Wales international. He's had his injury problems as Dan this season, and he's only mustered 4 starts and 12 sub-ups, totaling 411 minutes, with no goals and no assists. So, you know, for someone like Dan James, his primary weapon is his pace. I don't think there's any signs that he's getting slower. You know, that'll probably kick in when he gets into his 30s. But I think the issue for Dan is the same kind of issue for Wilfred Gnonto and the likes of Elijah Ramazani as well. We don't play with wingers. It's that simple. You know, the only reason that Noah Okafor fits into the current system is that he can also play as a second striker. It's not really Dan's position. It's not really Wilfred's position, and it's not really Elijah's position either. You could even say the same about Jack Harrison, who's another winger. We just can't accommodate wingers. So the only reason to keep the wingers at the club is if we're going to change system. Could be 4-4-2, could be whatever, you know. Could be whatever formation uses wingers. But it ain't going to be right for the two of them to stay on if they're not given game time. And then finally, Joel Perreault, 19 goals. Bearing in mind as well that from Dan James's point of view, we signed him for about £25 million. Now, that was a long time ago. That was a long time ago, because he's since signed another contract. I think he's been at the club 5 years now. I think he signed a new contract only a season or two ago. So, you know, from Dan's point of view, I mean, we're never going to recoup 25 million quid for him. Not a chance. He's not maintained that level. So I have no idea what we'd get from him. I mean, from Wilfred Gnonto's point of view, if we were to sell Wilfred Gnonto, I think we'd get at least 10 million quid. I think we'd double what we're signing for. But that's only based on potential and number of years that he's got remaining in his career. At the age of 22, you know, you know, he's got a long way to go, but he is already a fully fledged, you know, Italy first team, well, Italy senior player. He got those caps very early on in his career though. But obviously the Italian FA obviously see you know, a very bright future for him. And I think there's a good player in Wilfred Gnonto. But again, he just don't fit the system. So unless we change the system and adopt a system that works for the wingers at the club, I don't think there's any space in the squad for needing Wilfred Gnonto or Dan James unless we want to change system partway through a match, which we have done a few times this season. Sometimes gone from 5 at the back to 4 at the back. You know, partway through the match. So it has been done. It's not unheard of. So yeah, it's a difficult one with Wilfred Gnonto. Just like his age is on his side. He's only 22, so we'll have to see on that one. Regarding Joel Perreault, we signed him for £10 million in the Championship. Got 19 goals to help us get out of that division, and has hardly had a sniff. He's played 2 starts and 12 sub-apps, totaling just 218 minutes this season in the Premier League. No goals, no assists. Now, he's 26-year-old. He's just been capped by Suriname, I believe, a few weeks ago. So he's going to want to play. He's going to want to play. There's no doubt about it. Again, a bit like Seb Bornow and Dan James potentially. You're not going to want to sit on the bench. Not when you're in your mid to late 20s. And on the basis that he's not been used because he just hasn't fit the system, he doesn't have that size and effectiveness that either Lucas Metra or DCL has. So he's just not being trusted to have a go in the Premier League. A little bit harsh on Joel, possibly, and I think that maybe a newly promoted team like Coventry would possibly take a punt on him, perhaps, or Ipswich. Depends on whatever style they play. Could we get the 10 million back? I think he's young enough to get it back for us to get the 10 million back if we were to sell him. And I think that based on what he's done at championship level, I don't see any reason why we couldn't recoup the full 10 million back. As I say, at the age of 26, he's still got plenty of time. So that's where I'm at with all these players, folks. There's potentially a lot of wages that would come off the books. If all of these players were to leave, I don't see any of those that's been loaned out staying. I think they're all gone this summer in some shape or in some shape or form. With the likes of Matteo Joseph, he might get another loan spell because a bit like Wilfred Nonto, he's still only 22-year-old. But for someone like Gallart, who's been out of the first team picture for a long time now, I don't see a future for him at Leeds. And Ramazani, who's a similar age to Gallart, maybe slightly older, we've already got a larger Ramazani type player in the squad, and that's Wilfred Nonto. But again, look at how little Nonto's played this season. It would have been a similar thing for Ramazani. He probably would have only made about 400 minutes this season. So it's a difficult one. But my reckoning is if the wages of all these players comes off the Leeds books, it then frees up wages to potentially offer 4 or 5 new players, which I think Leeds will need in the summer. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there, folks. Let me know down in the comments below. Do you think any of these players will stay on going into next season? I think the only definite would be Caldalo. I think he's earned a 1-year extension. The one downside about Caldalo is that he is 35 years old currently. Now, goalkeepers, as we know, can play on that bit longer, but I just have a feeling that with Carl, he's not the long-term future option for the number 1 shirt, but he's earned his match day wages this season. There's no doubt about it. He's made 19 starts now. He's probably going to finish the season with 22 by the time the season finishes. Which is for a 35-year-old goalkeeper is not bad going at all. Lucas Perry, he's currently 28. He's got even more time on his hands. He's made 16 starts this season, so he's had a bit of a taste of the Premier League. I mean, you would think possibly that Lucas Perry would be, they'd have a talk with Lucas in the summer and say, do you want to stay? And do you want to fight for your place? But either way, we're going to need, I think we need at least one more goalkeeper because we're not going to have Millier or Cairns. I don't think. But there we go. So, leave it there, folks. Do please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please hit the like button and also the notification bell so you don't miss any future content. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.